What's popping, y'all? Y'all see the title of the video. Ain't much to discuss. We jumped right into this reaction of Jubilee's pro-Israel and pro-Palestine roundtable debate.
I lost friends at Nova, one of the nature parties that was attacked. It's actually another nature party that was also attacked called Psyduck, which not a lot of people really know about.
It's a smaller party.
Smaller party, yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, I mean, Nova was the same location of my first nature party in 2012. I've been going to them since then. And to say the community was devastated is really an understatement. It was just horrible.
Yeah,
really
I can imagine. I mean, just going anywhere, regardless of what side you on, I mean, just going anywhere and just be attacked like that is devastating regardless. And, you know, I have my strong opinions about this issue. No one's untouched. Let's just say that no one's really much untouched. There's been, you know, loss of life on both sides. And I just want to make that very clear, you know, despite us, a lot of us having strong opinions either or on the situation and how this started, you know, we got to acknowledge that at least.
Rely more on the information I get from social media than the news.
Yeah, this has been a hotly top debate. No one agrees with it because, like I said, social media can obscure your view, but it's also, there's a lot of big things from the news that, you know, we can't rely on. I'll talk more in a minute.
Obviously, it's very important that we're using like verified news sources. There's so much misinformation,
yeah,
I think, from both sides. I know that I've corrected people on the Palestinian side, like, hey, I don't think that this is actually true. Like, maybe, you know, we need a source. If you're reposting something from someone else, also tag whichever, you know, journalist or news site it's coming from, just to streamline information, because, you know, misinformation can hurt the cause more than the actual information not being shared, truly. And
like one of the biggest things to destroy a movement is just to create misinformation around it. Now I can bring my public health perspective into this from the pandemic, you know, with the vaccines. Basically, you know, a lot of people got, you know, curbed, didn't want to get the vaccines, didn't want to like try to engage with us when it comes to public health practitioners and educators about, you know, getting the vaccine, because they heard from either Trump, they heard from either Republican Party, conservatives, basically stuff down the vine, hearsay of just like what's in the vaccine. You know, they put, you know, babies in the vaccine, you know, I don't want to do this, I don't do that. And just like at the end of the day, you know, this is a verified tested vaccine. Another thing I also heard with the vaccine story was just like, you know, the vaccine was actually causing heart attacks, the vaccines are causing, you know, pain, aches and all that. When actuality is just, you might get a mild reaction to it, but most likely people who have been unalived after taking the vaccine and after they got COVID, it's probably due to long COVID effects. Like, COVID attacks every part of your body, starting with the lungs and the heart. Like, you're going to have long-term effects from COVID that we are still studying to this day. That's not, has nothing to do with the vaccine. Like, the vaccine is only to elicit an immune response. Maybe that immune response may kick off another thing that causes you to have more damage stuff, but the initial damage comes from the actual disease. Like, there's something we need to get that straight. And so when I talk about misinformation being very much powerful, especially with disinformation, the intentional use of misinformation to railroad different, you know, campaigns and all that, it's very much, you know, a thing I can sympathize with a lot of people on this side, because there's been so much misinformation that's been coming out over from the Middle East, from Israel, from Palestine and all that, to the point where we can't ascertain what's going on over there. And it's just like, you know, a very unfortunate situation where, you know, you're having journalists being targeted, that, you know, we can't get the truth out, you know, as much as we would like to. And so that's something we need to be mindful when we're talking about, you know, misinformation during this whole conflict.
Can I ask a question? Because I saw you both not. In your opinion, is the American media bias anti-Palestinian or anti-Jewish bias, is what you say when you say that the American media is not?
anti-Palestinian.
That's so interesting, because for the Jews, we think it's so anti-Jewish bias.
Yeah.
It
can be both, right?
Yeah.
It's one or the other. And
It's both, pretty much.
Oh, because you said it is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, because like if you look at the wording, there's selective language, there's omission, and there's adding of certain words that paint a narrative very strongly. So when they say clashes between you know, Palestinian, Israeli forces and Hamas. But you look at what the actual story is and you read the fine print, which most people unfortunately don't do. It turns out that Israeli forces in whatever situation might have stormed into a village and shot a child. But the headline reads clashes.
Yeah.
Anytime it's the other way around, terrorist. So
Like I tell people, like definitely try to get a healthy news diet by looking at all different types of sources, not just the ones you agree with, but the ones you don't agree with. I'm still doing a better job, trying to do a better job with that when it comes to reading, like, CNN and then starting to look at Fox News, see what they say about it, and then looking on alternative media sites like blog posts, not blog posts, but basically on time independent news sources and stuff. A good one would be the Interceptor, as well as looking at MSNBC, things online, because I feel like if you listen to it, the way the tone is, all that, it might influence the way you think. But reading it, and looking at online sources is a lot more viable, because you remove that tone, but basically you just get the information, or you should just get the information right there. So I implore y'all to do that. Please read everything you look online. Don't just believe social media. Stop looking at the shade room. Stop looking at what your auntie down the street might be posting. Look at the media. Look at backup information. Verify your sources, and actually come to a form and opinion about it, because at the end of the day, misinformation is very much a powerful tool towards any weapon.
There's literally examples of, for example, if there's a terrorist attack in Israel, the BBC will publish IDF, shoots Palestinians, as opposed to the terrorists literally came and tried to stab people and then got neutralized by the IDF. And so I think the language, honestly, and by the way, I have a lot of Palestinian friends. I know you guys think the media is biased against you, and I know we also think that too. I see this on both of my feeds. It's so blatant how we both feel this way. And I think that instead of dismissing the fact that we just don't see that, maybe we need to send each other examples of articles that we feel are completely biased and have really crappy headlines. And the truth is, by the way, most of these media orgs don't even have a personal incentive in the region. They're just stirring this pot for no, and we're just fighting out over this. We shouldn't let them do that. But the BBC is legitimately so anti-Semitic. CNN has taken years before they turned around and called Hamas a terrorist group. Their headlines are an absolute atrocity.
I need to see
They
an
never
example of
report
this.
on anything that happens for the Israeli side. They only report on our response.
But how is
And
that
it's
anti-Semitic?
because they never report on the attacks that come towards us. They only report on what we do. And yes,
That's all I see.
it's
It's interesting
Okay,
how.
I want to answer
getting,
the
like,
problem.
But
two
here's
different
my thing with that.
It's
From
interesting.
generally,
I'd like to
hold on, hold on.
I would-
My general understanding from that is just yes, you get attacks coming towards you. A lot of times they refer to the rockets going over to Israel. I might be wrong. Please correct me in the comment section if I am, but that's my initial thoughts on it. But the thing about it is just y'all have an Iron Dome. Let's just put logics into it. Whenever the IDF goes and carpet, bombs, just to be frank, Gaza area in Gaza or Palestinian area, basically they don't have the Iron Dome. Basically you get destruction, you get kids maimed, unalive, you get, adults maimed and unalive, you're destroying a whole, population. But when Hamas sends rockets attacks over to Israel, to my understanding, is just the Iron Dome shoots them down. They have a 99%, a success rate, and they're continuously being funded by the US to get that up. So you need to bring more context into that. Yes, I get you're being attacked. Yes, they're not reporting on the attacks or whatever, but there's a huge disadvantage when you talk about, power. Y'all are able to defend yourselves while they aren't able to do that. And then, on top of that, you have an IDF trying to respond quicker and harsher with that, into a mostly civilian population. So that's something I kind of I see it from my point of view, from the sources I've gotten, from the media I've obtained. Of course, if I'm wrong, let me know. But that is just my personal opinion.
U.S. media that we've been fed has been feeding into lies over the years, not just this conflict, in general. So when you say they don't have let's say, a dog in the race, it's just not true, because Joe Biden clearly supports Israel unequivocally. So you can't say that there's no Israeli bias in America. The U.S. always stands with Israel. That's a fact.
I have a problem with Joe Biden, probably
everybody does.
Okay.
Joe Biden or not, I don't think that affects our media coverage.
It does.
$1 billion
It does.
According to you.
No, because the Democrats
Joe
definitely.
Biden repeated the unsubstantiated claim that 40 babies were
Yeah.
beheaded.
Joe Biden say that because he saw what we showed him. If I believe Joe Biden and his support to Israel, I think it's a big BS.
So here's my thing. That is a lie. Not a lie, but like they still haven't substantiated that claim. As of October 12th, and 11th, there still hasn't been any proof of any verified baby claim. And it says right here the White House actually walked back Biden's claims he saw children beheaded. I'm not gonna like pull up an article because like I already made a video about this. It was one of my first initial videos about the conflict. But yeah, there was no verified claim of babies. Like basically what Biden was saying that he just like was like citing the sources of like an IDF soldier that was saying it, but even the IDF commanders that was in charge during that incident, basically he couldn't verify it. Like there was no there was no verified reports by any independent media outlet or anything, like photos coming online, that says this happened. Now, were baby probably unalive? Yes, babies were probably unalive, which is still incredibly sad. But at the end of the day, it's a difference when you say babies were just unalived as opposed to 40 babies were, beheaded, because that brings a, certain level of monstrosity against your opponent, and you try to like sympathize and try to amplify the war effort at that point because you think of these people as just cold-blooded monsters.
I'm glad that everybody stepped forward, because I think it's important that at the very foundation of what we're doing here today, that we all agree that this isn't a way to live, and we can't keep suffering more heartbreak and more losses.
This is crazy. If I'm going to bring kids into this world, enough is enough. And I don't want to live in a world without the optimism that peace is a possibility. I really don't. I think that that's like a world to live in. I refuse to believe that as a younger generation, as a newer, smarter, more informed generation, that we can't come together and make something tangible actually happen for our kids. And
but how does that happen,
I think
though?
The only way to do that is for people on both sides to recognize each other, and that
I agree.
We're gonna disagree on whatever, but like one side has their story, their truth, their lived experience. The other has the same. We don't have to convince the other to see it the exact same way. We just have to see each other and acknowledge that we're both in this situation. What do you mean?
What's your involvement in this conflict that we were speaking about?
I'm a Jew.
Oh.
So,
Damn, he said
like,
it so
where are you
hard.
from? Like, where do you live?
I live in Los Angeles.
Where were you born?
Los Angeles.
Okay. It's easy for you to say what you said, and even though I agree with what you said, that we do need to be able to see eye to eye. We do need to be able to find a future for our children. But respectfully, you were born in Los Angeles. You were raised in Los Angeles.
Have you visited Israel, though? That's the biggest thing.
One of the best places in the world. I love it, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the answer to this conflict, to this occupation.
So does the people from Jordan.
Okay.
So,
Jonah's thoughts on this conflict are not invalid just because he was born in
say
LA,
they're
and
invalid.
I
I
think
said
that that's
I
crazy to
agree.
sort of invalidate.
I said I agree.
He's not invalid, and he's making a good point. Like, it's like, and this is, I ain't trying to like roast everybody who kind of have this sentiment, but it's like whenever you have Jewish people, who doesn't have kind of like actual connections to Israel, they just might have visited, but they were born and raised somewhere else, and this is not anti-Semitic. I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic in my comments. This is not my intention, but I understand his sentiment that people shouldn't have this argument because at the end of the day, it's a religious, like conflict. This is more so of like a land conflict. Like, let's be honest. Israel was established in the 1914s, 1910s, and stuff like that. At the end of World War I, because the British, Empire, they wanted to, create a place for the Zionists to have for them to move because they didn't want to deal with anti-Semitism in their own countries in the West. They want to give them their own space or whatever. And this was legitimized after World War II. When the Holocaust happened, terrible thing. Like, let's not forget that. I'm not dissuading none of that. I'm not invalidating none of that. But the U.S. wanted to like really hamper and like really just bolster those efforts. We need to pay back the Jewish race and Jewish people, and so that's how they really established Israel. And in order to do that, there were people already living there. You had to get people off their land. A lot of it was violent during the Nakba, during this 75-year conflict. Like, every iteration of this conflict, the Palestinian people lost more and more land. that could also trace their heritage back generations onto the land. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, yes, I understand this is a religious thing. This is a thing, people should be upset. Like, people are losing friends, families over this. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at historical history, historical facts and all that, you need to understand this is a land thing. This is a whole, resources thing. This is a whole thing that, it's not just everybody can have an opinion on unless you actually live the situation on it.
I would love to speak to you just openly, because I think what you said is really important, and it's something that I've thought of for many years. There's a really good book called Catch 67 by Mika Goodman. Both the right and the left hate it equally, so it's pretty decent. And it talks about the idea that we can't look at everything from a non-binary perspective. So we can't look at it as peace or no peace, because you're right. Tensions need to be limited.
Yep.
Relations need to grow. We can't just immediately offer something and then boom, it's accepted. And then boom. We've been trying that for the last however many years and it hasn't worked.
Yeah, but
so I agree that we do need to minimize we need to improve, the day-to-day lives of both Israelis and Palestinians. Travel within the West Bank is a huge issue, and Catch 67 talks about that, and potentially building a road that's Palestinian-controlled through all of the cities to be able to improve travel and transport. So there aren't these sort of weird blockades or blockages where you can't bring your friend to somewhere, or you can't visit a cousin who's in a different town. There's actually a lot of really awesome orgs that are working on these sort of tangible, actionable items that we can do to improve the situation and the lives on the ground. And if anything, I think in the last 4 or 5 years, what we've seen with the Abraham Accords, bringing peace between so many nations and Israel in the Arab countries, to me, as
the Abraham Accords are bilateral agreements of Arab-Israeli normalization signed between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Kingdom Bahrain is in West Asia. Yeah, Palestinian wasn't even involved with this Abraham Accords. I don't know what they're talking about, but declarations, we didn't understand and recognize the importance of maintaining strengthening peace in the Middle East and around the world based on mutual understanding and coexistence. We encourage efforts to promote interfaith and intercultural dialogue to advance a culture of peace among the 3 Abrahamic religions and all humanity. We believe the best way to address challenges is through cooperation dialogue. We seek tolerance. We support science, art, medicine, and commerce to inspire humankind. We seek the end of radicalization conflict to provide all children a better future. Okay, what are the tangible stuff of this? I'm not trying to read no actual, things of it. So basically, economic impact, while Israel and UAE have long maintained de facto recognition areas of business, including the diamond trade and high-tech industry, including artificial intelligence and defense, the Accord opened the door to a much wider range of economic cooperation, including formal investments. The Abraham Fund was a program sponsored by the U.S. government that was supposed to raise $3 billion to boost trade and agriculture in the region, facilitate access to clean water and affordable electricity. And the fund was overseen by the U.S. Development Finance Cooperation. And so what I'm getting this whole thing, this was more like a business, cooperation to inspire more business and cultural development. But it has nothing to do initially with the whole Israel, because as you can see, they were not involved in the talks. Like, this is the West Bank and this is Gaza. They were not involved in the West talks. And so with her trying to ride and die for the Abraham Accords, it had nothing to do with this whole conflict to begin with. Like, it had nothing to do with the whole conflict to begin with, and you can do that with a whole Google search. Like, I don't know what she's going on about this.
work on
Israel and pro-Palestine.
Main question of the day.
I'm pro 2-state solution, so that's pretty much why I walked up here. I don't think a 1 state is reasonable. I think 2 states is much easier to accomplish. It's been something our
She all happy.
former leaders,
They all happy over here because yes, that's what we want. Like, yeah, I mean, realistically, a 2-state solution is going to have to happen. I mean, realistically, we never had a 2-state solution because Israel had put, Palestinians under a chokehold for years. But yeah, I think realistically right now, a 2-state solution going to happen. I mean, in an optimistic, idealistic world, I believe a 1-state solution with Palestinians coming on top, I think that's more viable. But at the end of the day, we got to be pragmatic about this.
Getting along nicely.
Let's see what they got to say about it.
The way that I see it, the way that Palestinians are under occupation right now, they're under occupation by Israel. So I cannot see myself being pro-Israel in the way that it is right now with the government that it has.
And that's fair.
And I personally am a 1-state person. I hope everybody here knows this, but pre-1948, Jews, Christians, and Muslims all lived in the land together.
Not peacefully.
And
Peacefully.
Peacefully.
No.
Look into Jerusalem.
Yeah.
I can show you a lot of
Can you please stop interrupting me when I'm speaking?
1913.
You got to speak.
Thousands of Jewish people died.
So-
Before 1913. Look into Jerusalem.
Stana.
We'll show you.
So for me, that's why I say if someone in this moment comes to me and says I'm pro-Israel and I'm pro-Palestine, it makes me feel like it's just a very neutral stance, not
Yeah.
wanting to take either side. For me, as long as Palestinians are
It's like I say, kumbaya, you know, let's all be friends. That's not going to work because you friends don't oppress other friends. So.
I'm not saying this about the people. I'm not saying I want to get rid of the Jews or the Israelis. Look, all of us here are younger than the state of Israel. We did not create this. So I don't think that we can point fingers at each other.
You can't expel everybody, you know.
And not see that we don't have the stakes that the leaders and those that came before them did when they created this problem.
The reason I didn't step forward is quite similar, because when I hear the word Israel, I don't think the tribes of Israel. I think the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And the state of Israel, the foundation that it's built upon, is a racist ideology. Now, did it always start like that? I don't think so. I think there was some racism in there.
Like the road to hell always starts with good intentions. I'm trying to think, the Zionist movement, the idea of it was, you know, and what I've studied under, this could be wrong, but basically it's just they wanted their own state to be able to live prosperous and free. And like, I think everyone should deserve their own home. Like, I tell personal stories all the time. Like, you know, I'm still searching for that home where, you know, as a Black American, I don't feel like I have to code who I am. I don't have to like have to fight for my existence or fight on why I should get an equal chance at the table, you know, in many sense of the word, whether it be socially, whether it be, you know, professionally, whether it be, you know, just me, myself, and, you know, romantically and all that. You know, I want a home. I want a place where I can feel like home. I haven't found that just quite yet. But, you know, I do understand people want to make sure they have a home where they can feel like they don't have to be persecuted. But however, that doesn't come at the expense of other people. And that's one of the biggest things a lot of people miss about this conflict. Like, yes, you know, you can genetically tie your ancestry back to the land. And, you know, a lot of Jewish people who don't agree with Israel have always said, like, yes, you can tie your ancestry back to the land, whatever. But that doesn't dispel any other's right to know, like, hey, they live there now. They've been living there for generations. Now you can't just up and kick them out. And that's why, like what she said earlier, you know, she doesn't want people to necessarily be expelled off the land because they lived there for generations and, like, they literally just living there. You know, they weren't, you know, responsible for the state of Israel, like the atrocity that committed when the Nakba and all that. So I understand her point of just like, hey, we can live existently in peace, but at the end of the day, we have to actually live in peace. Like, you need to stop oppressing me, and like, we need to understand history for what it is. And like, I agree with what she's saying, and like, I mess with it, you know, and that's one of the things where, you know, I feel like a lot of people get so caught up with the anti-Israel. Like, you're not anti-Jewish, they're not anti-Semitic. It's more so they're just anti the state of Israel the way it is right now. That is all that a lot of people are saying right now. And like, I mess with it.
Imperialism. We wanted to come in and we wanted to diplomatically figure out a solution to be able to both live there. And the diplomatic solution was not an ethno-state of Jews. It was a majority Jewish state. That was the offer, but it was 45% Arab. And not to mention that, by the way, but we're forgetting about a whole bunch of other people who have ancestral ties to the land. The Druzim, the Bedouins. I mean, it's not just Jews and Muslims and Arabs and Christians.
That's why
There's so many
everyone should
other,
be able
but they're
to
all
coexist.
welcome in Israel. And in Israel, the Arab Israelis that live there have 100% equal rights.
They have second-class citizenship.
They are not second-class
They are not
citizens.
allowed the same education. They are not
of course
afforded.
they do.
They are not
studied with
afforded.
many
They are
Arab
not
Israelis.
afforded.
I've been there, my
I can
friend.
tell you.
How do
I
you
can
know
tell
that?
you. Do you want the statistics?
How do you know that, my friend? We live there.
One at a time.
I live in the north. I live alongside with
Have their own curriculum.
They don't even have to serve in the IDF.
Let me give you an example. When I served
A lot
the
of,
IDF,
speaking of the IDF, a lot of the qualifications to
when I
qualify
served
for
the
government
IDF,
support
okay, when I served
are
the
based
IDF,
on serving in the
I
IDF,
spent 3 years
which excludes Arabs.
being in the army, okay? And then when I finish, I want to go to the university. So I need to have X, my grade in the SAT, let's say it's X, okay? So the Arab people in Israel, those who say are discriminated, need to get half X as mine grade to get into the universities, although they didn't serve 3 years in the army. So
Affirmative action. Yeah, that's true.
most
If
of
you
the
go to a
lawyers,
doctor in
Two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
true.
that's like saying like, oh, I have a black friend, like you got black people going to universities, going to UT, you know, going to Harvard and all this stuff. I'm like, that doesn't mean the fact of the matter is you got black people suffering. And that's a whole big thing with this whole black billionaire argument. A lot of people want to use the Jay-Z's, the Beyoncé's, the Rihanna's, the Kanyes of the world saying like, oh, racism doesn't exist. Obama is a prime example. He's not a black billionaire, but like everyone thought we were in a post-racial era in the U.S. when he got elected president. When you had people opposing him getting hung, getting lynched. At the end of the day, the system can benefit maybe a token few of people who are able to get ahead in the system. And at the end of the day, it can also still oppress the system. The system may not be made for them. They're just an anomaly in the system, and that doesn't diminish their accomplishments. That doesn't diminish their skills. They're probably the most skilled individuals in the world. I know a lot of black doctors that are skilled. I know a lot of black, PhDs who are skilled. A lot of black nurses, professionals, trade workers who are very much skilled. But they still will recognize that, hey, I had a lot of barriers to overcome that a lot of people can't just overcome. I was just blessed in the situation. So yeah, I don't buy this whole situation where it's just like, oh, there are black doctors, there's Arab doctors, there's Arab judges, we're very progressive. No, like you still blockading people for about since 2005. Like, let's just keep it about 50, y'all. Like,
I had stage left.
So they gonna hug it out.
Quite
Well,
a day.
Some people walking
hug or shake
off.
hug, shake.
Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
Thank you for being
to meet you in this,
yeah.
until
Keep having fun.
This man kind of confused.
try. Appreciate you.
Okay, he hugged him out, yeah.
Like,
No, that
actually
wasn't
try.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
It's okay. I know
I know
you.
you've got a lot of pain.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Yeah, let's just this ain't no kumbaya injury. The whole conflict is still going on right now. But with that being said, that was as intense as I thought it would be. Like I said, this is a very big situation. It's still an ongoing situation. I'm gonna keep talking about any major updates going on. But let's just be kind in the comment sections. Let's be respectful. Let's be, not anti-Semitic or anti-Palestinian or anti-Muslim or anything like that. We all people in the world. And, there's a lot enough, unaliving going on over there right now. Let's just not try to do that in the comment section over here. So please be respectful, all that wonderful good stuff. But we like to see that, like, subscribe, turn on post notification, all that wonderful good stuff. Here's my first initial video I did on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict as it's going on right now. I definitely implore y'all, please go watch that and, get more context to the situation. I did explain a little bit of concepts already explained in that video, so please go over there and see it. But with that being said, stay warm, stay frosty, depending on what part of the country you're in, and peace out.